Most people pleasers believe that they're kind and generous, that they care about others. But what if I was to tell you that most of what you're doing is actually coming from a place of fear? People pleasing isn't about helping others or making other people happy. It's about controlling how you're perceived so that you can avoid conflict, rejection, and being judged. And the cost of this particular strategy is enormous. You resent everybody, you lose track of who you are, and you create a life that's ultimately quite miserable and uncomfortable. So in this episode, we're going to cover the core lie behind people pleasing, the idea that you are making other people happy. We're going to attack this lie so that we can rescue you from the trap that it's put you in and help steer you towards a life that you'll actually enjoy and other people will even appreciate more. I'm not going to tell you to stop caring about other people. I'm going to show you why trying to make them happy doesn't work and why making people happy doesn't mean that you're a good person. So look, people pleasers aren't bad or selfish or manipulative on purpose. There's no conscious kind of manipulative drive here. In fact, if that was you, then you're not really a people pleaser. If you know that you're just using this to control people and you don't actually care about them, then you're more on the psychopathic spectrum or the narcissistic spectrum. This episode is for people who actually think of themselves as good people and think that making others happy is a good thing to be doing. Most of the people I've ever worked with, they genuinely want to be kind to others. They want other people to have a good life. They want harmony in their social environment. They feel that what they're doing is a strategy to improve people's lives. That is their genuine motive underneath it all. But over time, an awareness starts to build, a kind of paradox, where you realize that what you're doing feels moral, feels like the right thing to do, it feels like you're a good person, but then also something feels off about it. This is not just a feeling, but it's apparent in the results in your life. You're not getting the kind of karma that a good person should get. You're not being rewarded for pleasing everybody. In fact, you're just getting more and more miserable and exhausted and disconnected from who you really are. It seems like an odd result for somebody who's been so good all the time. So that's the first thing I want you to notice, is people pleasing feels good. Trying to make other people happy seems like a good thing to do. But in the long run, it does not produce good results. People are not getting healthier, your relationships are not getting better, you're not loving yourself more as time goes on. And even the people you do this with don't seem to be improving their lives as a result of it. So something is off. We have to differentiate. People pleasing and being kind are not the same thing. Making other people happy and improving other people's lives, not the same thing. So I want you to start extricating those two ideas from each other. Kindness and pleasing people, they're not the same. So if people pleasing isn't kindness, then what is it? In essence, it's prioritizing emotional comfort, theirs, which gives you yours, over being truthful. The real key difference between people pleasing and true, genuine, confident kindness is honesty. People pleasers will sacrifice honesty to make somebody else happy, whereas a genuinely kind person will use honesty to improve other people's lives. Happiness, not so much a consideration. So you've got to understand that you sacrificing yourself and pleasing others and trying to make them happy is not you doing some sort of moral good. You're not coming from a place of integrity and kindness. You're coming from fear. This is a strategy to prevent certain outcomes that you're uncomfortable with. So what is it that usually gets hidden when you're a people pleaser? Your true opinions. That's one of the first things to go. Now this goes in a couple of ways. First off, you start to lie to others about your true opinions. Anytime you think you have a perspective on things that would upset other people or make them upset with you in some way, you will muddy or merge or outright lie about those. But after a while, you don't even feel like you're lying anymore because you lie to yourself first. You start to change your opinion when you perceive that somebody else, or anticipate that somebody else, is going to have a bad reaction to it. So you might start with your original position, and then either because you can read the person, or you know them well, or they give you a signal, you realize they're not going to react well to that position, you'll actually argue yourself inside your head into the other position. You will change your opinion into one that's going to get a better reaction. People pleasers often pride themselves on being easygoing and kind of seeing both sides of the story. What they really are is flexible with their opinions. They will move to meet you where you are. They will see your point of view as a way of making you like them. Not because they actually agree with your point of view, but because they've talked themselves into agreeing with it so they can avoid conflict with you. One of the main types of opinions that they hide are their preferences. What they want, don't want, like, dislike. I've talked about this in so much of my content. Who you are is made up of your preferences, and that's one of the first things to go when you want to please other people. Because if you were to be completely honest about every preference you had, you're going to upset people. It's only a matter of time. Even the people who love you the most, at least 1% of your preferences will upset them. So in order for you to not upset anyone, you have to start sacrificing your preferences. And you can't even say them. So when I say you sacrifice them, I mean they don't even get expressed. I don't mean that you express them and then take the loss. That's actually quite honest. No, you don't even show them in the first place. You pretend that they don't exist. And because your opinions and your preferences are being suppressed, boundaries are the next to go. How is it that you're supposed to set boundaries with someone, tell them what it means to respect you and so on, if you're not even telling them what you like and what you don't like and what you believe in? Because you've become so flexible about who you are depending on who you're with, there are no boundaries to set. It feels like you don't need to do it. It feels quite genuinely like, I got no problem with anyone. But the truth is, you've turned yourself into someone that nobody can have a problem with because you will just fold whenever they push. You don't have any boundaries. It's like your property doesn't have a fence line. People can just walk right across it. And you tell yourself that this means that you're easygoing and that you get along well with people and that it's nice to be around you because you don't cause problems. When in truth, you've just turned yourself into a ghost that fits any container. You don't have any solid form. You don't have a personality. You don't have preferences. You don't have deal breakers that you'll hold strong with people. That doesn't make you a good person. It makes you dishonest. And of course, now that your boundaries have been sacrificed, you're going to be disappointed with people. Because even when you've talked yourself into believing that you're fine with everything, deep down you know you're not. Now this might not quite arise into your conscious awareness, but you will be upset with other people's behavior. You will secretly resent them. You'll have covert contracts with them where you expected them to be one way and they didn't do it, but you don't want to confront them, so you just sit there sulking on the inside, hoping that somehow they'll notice and correct their behavior. Or you won't even do that because you believe that whatever you want is not even worth expressing, that everybody else is right and you're always wrong, but you'll still be upset with what they did. There's still things you wish people did differently. There's still preferences you have for their behavior, so you can't help but feel disappointed in them, frustrated with them, and after a while, quite full of rage. And of course, one of the main things that you hide are your desires, particularly anything that's high stakes, like sexual attraction, or something that would be competitive with others, or something that's really outside of the norm. And so you don't honor the things that you want, the things that you yearn for. It's another type of preference, but particularly the things that would make your life thrive, that would make your heart sing. You squash all of these because usually feeling that strongly about anything is just too risky. It feels like that's going to provoke a confrontation or discouragement or judgment from others. And so you dishonor yourself, you disrespect yourself in this way. And then you tell yourself you're a good person for doing this, even though you have a double standard where you let other people do it. Other people want to express their desires, no problem. Other people want to say they're disappointed, I'll jump on it and fix it. But you, no, you've got a different set of rules you've got to live by. So why don't you express all this stuff if you're such a good person? Why aren't you honest about all these basic things that don't really harm anyone in any major way? You're not trying to change anyone else's life. Well, there's kind of four main horsemen that you're avoiding here. The first, of course, is rejection. You hide these things because you think that if somebody else disagrees with you, that's the same as them completely disliking you, which means they will reject you. And you've convinced yourself long ago that this is a bad thing that must be avoided. You're so sure that rejection's a bad thing. You're so sure that another person not liking you and disagreeing with you is some sort of harmful event that must be prevented. Like you wouldn't survive it, or like it would spread and everybody would ostracize you. Second one, of course, is conflict. Confrontation, arguments, any sort of heated emotional exchange. So this one isn't so much just about being disliked, but about being with a person while they feel very uncomfortable things about you, and you feel uncomfortable things in reaction to them feeling that way. Could be as much as a fear of violence as well, but mostly it's just about a fear of somebody being upset with you, being angry with you, being disappointed in you, being confused by what you said, being in a sort of disagreeable, disgust, distaste feeling about you. It's not even the content that bothers you, it's just the feelings. If anyone feels that way about you, you take that as a huge threat. Not just because of what, potential rejections that might come from it, but from the actual moment being there. It's so unbearable for you that you do anything to prevent it. Guilt is the third one. Or shame is maybe a better word. The reason you're a people pleaser and you hide your preferences is because some point long time ago you decided that there was something wrong with you. So other people can have their preferences, other people can get their way, but you're not allowed to. There's a double standard because there's something broken about you, wrong about you. And so whenever you upset somebody else, your first thought is, oh, that's my wrongness hurting other people. We don't think, hey, maybe they're a bit too sensitive, or maybe they just got to handle life better. We think, no, I've done something wrong because I'm a bad person. Ultimately, all this striving you're doing to be seen as a good person, to try and convince others and yourself that you're a good person, is because deep down you're convinced that you're not one, and that you need to somehow overwork and overcorrect to make up for that. The fourth one is disapproval. This idea that somebody else has decided that you're a bad person, that there's something wrong with you. So the guilt we have is this idea that there is something wrong with us, and disapproval is evidence that it's true. We find disapproval to be a problem that needs to be solved, to be something that is unquestionably true. So if someone disapproves of me and thinks there's something wrong with me, and thinks I'm wrong, we don't even doubt that they might be incorrect in their assessment, that they might be working with the wrong information, that their opinion might not fucking matter. We just go, oh, there's that proof, oh no. And so we do everything we can to prevent disapproval happening, to try and sort of keep people floating along thinking that we're a good person and never finding out that we're not. So this idea that you're trying to make people happy, no. You take their happiness as a sign that you're preventing conflict, preventing disapproval, and so on. So it's not really that you want them to be happy. It's that you don't want them to be upset with you because that is upsetting for you. That's all this is. This isn't about their happiness. Happiness is just the one state that you can handle them being in. This is for your benefit, not theirs. Put it this way. If a people pleaser had a choice, make someone happy or upset them, and yet they knew that upsetting them was best for their quality of life, they'd still choose making them happy. Because it's really about you and what you want, not really what's best for the other person. And how do we know this is true? Because the truth is what's best for the other person, the best possible data for them to make decisions, the full picture, the feedback they need, and yet you constantly deprive them of that because you know they'll be upset with it. Their short-term, disagreeable reaction to the truth is not worth it, even though it improves their quality of life in the long run, like giving someone hurtful feedback, but it helps them improve their behavior. No, you'd rather keep them happy here and now, even though it means depriving them of the information they need, the truth, to make the best decisions with their life. So please, if nothing else, by the end of this episode, stop telling yourself you're a good person for making others happy. That's not why you're doing it. So this brings us to the core lie, which is, if I keep other people happy, that makes me a good person. This is the system that you're working with, the fundamental core belief. Now, how do we form such a belief? You might think that just makes sense. Yeah, you make other people happy, you're a good person. Totally makes sense. Have another look at it. Imagine that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, that you're the only one who thinks this, that you're living in some sort of delusion that other people don't agree with. Why would somebody come to the belief that happiness, making other people happy, manipulating them into being happy, means that you're a good, decent, moral person? In a nutshell, childhood conditioning. You were raised in such a way where making people happy caused you safety. Right? Where controlling other people's emotions and getting them to a happy state prevented bad things from happening to you. You know, maybe you had really strict parents and they got easily upset with you speaking your mind or doing what you wanted to do or taking risks. And then eventually you picked up on the fact, like, if you do exactly what it is they want you to do and they're happy, nothing bad happens to you. So that must mean you're a good person because you're not being punished. Maybe making the kids laugh at the playground stopped them from bullying you. And you came to the conclusion, like, oh, okay, if I cause that sensation of happiness where they laugh, the bad things stop happening to me. So that's what a good person does. Because otherwise, why would bad things happen to me if I was being good? And I think that's the fundamental problem that children being raised have, is they assume that if bad things happen to them, punishments, then they must be bad people, receiving fair punishment. Children are very self-centered. Until about the age of 9 or 10, the brain doesn't develop the ability to realize that, things don't make sense in that way. That you can be a good person and still have bad things happen to you. That you can do everything right and still lose. And that other people doing bad things to you is not evidence of who you are as a person. It's evidence of who they are. Kids don't understand all that. If a parent yells at them, the kid goes, I did something wrong. Not, hey, this person doesn't know how to control their fucking anger. Oh, it's fine. They don't do that. They don't have that kind of critical thinking. On top of that, and this is what happened for a lot of nice guys like myself, we get praised for compliance. So we don't just get the removal of bad things for being easy to deal with and making people happy, but we get rewarded for making people happy as well. It could be just you only get attention when you're making people laugh. That was a big one for me. I only got attention if I was doing well in school, or performing in some way, like playing guitar really well, or being really funny. Other than that, I'd get ignored, which I felt like was a punishment. So I constantly got reward for being compliant and making people happy and thinking, well, I must be on track. That must be the way I need to go. I like these rewards. I like the sensations I get when everyone thinks I'm the funniest guy in the room, or they go, oh my God, you're getting so good at guitar now. Like, must be on track. There's my milestones, my guideposts. Sometimes some of the people pleasers I work with, they haven't had anything really that traumatically bad happen to them in childhood. They had decent enough parents, weren't too rough or strict or anything. They weren't bullied at school. They had a lot of friends. But they got so rewarded for making people happy that it just overrode their moral system. They became obsessed with chasing that high. Always being the best in the class, always being the coolest kid, the best at sports, whatever it was that they got their rewards from. And so they just became like good people, approval, validation-seeking addicts. And in particular, the kind of punishment we get is for being inconvenient emotionally. That's one of the most brutal things. If you watch most parents now, they will say no to their kid, tell them off, punish them, not because the kid's actually done anything harmful, but just because the emotions required to deal with the kid are a hassle. If a kid's running around screaming and stuff, that's not actually harmful. It's not like they're stabbing people, right? They're not embezzling money. They're just running around making a lot of noise. But if you're tired and sleep deprived and sensitive to noise, you'll say, stop that, as if they're doing something wrong. Now, the kid doesn't understand that you're just sensitive to noise. They think they're a bad person. And so they go, okay, if I cause grumpiness, I'm a bad person. So they start to get conditioned and programmed into thinking that being an inconvenience emotionally for someone who can't handle their shit means that you need to change, right? They just don't have the kind of maturity needed to go like, wait, if you don't like the noise, you shouldn't have had kids, motherfucker, piss off. Like, they can't think like that. They just go, oh no, I'm bad. And most parents don't sit down and go, wait, that was actually my bad. It's fine if you shout, like, nothing bad really happened. Or, you drew that artwork and it's not my favorite, but you like it, so that's good enough. Parents don't talk to their kids this way enough. And so kids have to figure it out on their own. And let's face it, kids are stupid. So it's not long before it becomes unconscious. Most of you, it became unconscious early in childhood. Like, by the time you got to high school, you're already programmed. Right? Some of you might have been a bit more conscious than that, but generally it just feels really automatic. You don't even think through the way you respond. You're hypervigilant. As soon as you start seeing disagreement form or you predict that it might happen, you automatically change course. You don't actually wait for bad things to happen. You predict them and avoid them, prevent them. You start to feel like this is a mature, intelligent way to respond. You look at other people getting all upset and getting emotional, and you look down on them. You feel superior to them. Say, they don't know how to be easygoing. They can't handle anything. They could learn a thing or two from me. I remember going through a big superiority phase through high school, where I thought of everybody else as being a selfish jerk who just hurt other people to get what they wanted, and I was this advanced human being who could be easygoing about everything and take care of everybody else's needs, like I was the hero that came to save the day. The idea that I was the most psychologically fucked up never occurred to me. I thought it was the opposite. It was only once I got into my 20s where I was like, I don't seem to be functioning as well as everybody else. Maybe I'm missing something. So you've got to understand the distortion. Caring about other people does not mean managing their emotions so that you feel better. I mean, that should be obvious once you hear it out loud. And once you see yourself doing it in practice, it's much more subtle because they feel better. They might even thank you for it. Like, oh, thank you for cheering me up. So you're thinking like, I'm getting nothing but green lights here. Or maybe they shouldn't have been cheered up. Maybe they should have finished their grieving process. Maybe you shouldn't have helped them with that thing and they should have figured it out on their own so that they can develop some skills. Just because they said thank you doesn't mean you actually helped them. They just feel good and maybe they just want to be polite. We don't even know why they're saying thank you. We don't even know why you're getting praised. You're not responsible for the way they feel. And whoever conditioned you into believing that was unhealthy and wrong for doing that. If your parents trained you to manage their emotions for them, your parents are fucked up. And that's no longer your burden. So you've grown up and now you're terrified of being honest about so many different things. You lie and prevaricate and exaggerate and hide various truths all the time, constantly justifying this to yourself as making others happy and therefore it's fine to do it. But when's the last time you actually sat down and thought, what am I afraid of? There's this thing I call round the corner fear, which is the kind of fear that you're afraid of something but you don't know exactly what it is. But your brain convinces you that this thing is definitely scary, you don't need to know anything more about it. It's like there's something around the corner making a big scary noise, and your brain goes, that's a terrible monster, trust me, don't even look at the thing, just don't go around the corner. When people are afraid of honesty, they often have some vague reasons like, I'll get rejected, or people won't like me. But they haven't actually thought through what they are even saying, and why that would be something to be scared of. Like if you were to tell me, I'm afraid of rejection, and I said, why? What's your answer to that? What is it about rejection that's so harmful? What is that big scary thing around the corner? So you go up to someone, they say, I don't like you. Then what happens? Fucking nothing. But you're treating it as if they're going to go, I'm sorry I don't like you, and now I'm going to have to shoot you in the kneecaps and kidnap your family, because those are the rules. You're behaving as if something that bad is going to happen. Of course, I've asked thousands of people at this point what it is they're afraid of, and there's some common answers that come up. The main one is something along the lines of they'll be upset. Now, the word upset can be changed with unhappy, or angry, or sad, or disappointed. There's lots of versions of upset. Sometimes a big range, and it depends on the person. But a lot of people will talk about that as if that's objectively harmful. Like, they'd be upset. Case closed. We don't need to go any further into why that's something to avoid. But of course, with my development and so on, I know to ask, well, why is them being upset something to be afraid of? And that's usually where they start stumbling. But then they'll go into, I'm going to be rejected, as in people are going to leave me, abandon me. If a guy's worried about upsetting his wife, I say, why? Because she'll divorce me. She'll take the kids, and I'll be all by myself for the rest of my life, living in a ditch. You get these catastrophic things where not only does the person leave you and abandon you, but somehow that does a lot of damage to you. Now, I'm not saying that these are all delusional. In fact, it might exactly be what happens, and ironically it would be caused by the people pleasing in the first place. But generally this idea that I will be left alone, it's a very childlike thing to feel and worry about, isn't it? I mean, an adult's actually fine on their own. So when a full-grown adult says, but they'll leave me, there's a childlike quality to it. It's like, that's fine if they leave you. Why are you worried about that? But if you're a 6-year-old, somebody leaving you is a big deal. If you got no friends at school, it's a horrible experience. If your parents turn their backs on you, you're very unsafe. So they get this kind of immature response. People will be upset and then leave me, and that is definitely bad, even though for an adult that's not objectively true. Then there's this reputational risk that often comes up. They'll think less of me. And not just that, but this will spread around. So me disappointing someone, it's not really just that's the problem. It's that this person is going to somehow make other people aware of how disappointing I am. There's this thing called reputation, this accumulated compound view of how everybody sees me, the kind of average opinion of me. And if I even wreck it with one person, it's like dropping a drip of poison into my reputation. It will spread throughout, and suddenly everybody will think I'm a bad person, and everybody will leave me. It's like that imposter syndrome. I'll be found out as a bad person, and it'll be too big to control. I won't be able to fix it. You'll notice this, that sometimes people pleasers are okay with upsetting someone when they feel that it can't go anywhere. So you get this irony. Somebody will be a people pleaser at work, but when they get into the online comments anonymously, they're trolls. They're awful to people, really nasty. Or if they're in a different country, they're suddenly much bolder with what they say, and so on. So once a people pleaser believes that their reputation can't possibly be tarnished, then the knives come out. Not always, but sometimes, which just gives you an indication as to what they really care about. And then even if we set aside what everybody else thinks of you, a people pleaser will feel like a bad person all on their own for upsetting someone else. And they can do this even when other people validate it. So even if other people say, look, you did the right thing, don't worry about them being upset, they're the wrong person, this one, they'll still feel guilty. Because somebody else being upset, we take that as hard evidence that we're a bad person. And it doesn't matter what anyone else says, we're already whipping ourselves on the back for having failed so miserably, trying to think of a way that we could have done that without upsetting someone else. Which is horrible for people pleasers, because people pleasing itself is upsetting for some people. So there's just no way for a people pleaser to get away from it. You're always going to disappoint someone and upset someone. It's inevitable, no matter how hard you try, because even trying hard is upsetting to some people. And so you're constantly feeling guilty and beating yourself up, feeling like a bad person because you just can't get it right perfectly. So people pleasing is not about caring for others. It's about using dishonesty to control other people. That's all this is, to avoid the outcomes that you're so terrified of. So what's the problem with this? I mean, I've had a few people come to me like, well, I just want to be a people pleaser forever. Well, fair enough. You do what you want with your life. But do I agree that that's actually a viable option? No. There is no way to maintain people pleasing without disaster at the end of the road. I firmly believe that. So let's talk about some of the costs, some that you'll already know about and some that are coming up. The main one internally is going to be an ever-growing resentment. You're constantly suppressing your needs and desires. You're constantly allowing people to mistreat you. You're constantly upset that people do mistreat you and how that represents how terrible the world is. And this is just building 1% at a time, over and over again, after every incident. And so you develop this deep-seated rage that you try to suppress, try to deny is there, try to pretend isn't there. It comes out every now and then and scares the shit out of you. Because you're just building up this unfairness victim story about how you're such a good person and you get punished for it and everybody else gets away with being a dick. And you're just not getting the reward you should for being the hero of the story. And because you're not setting boundaries and expressing what you want and allowing that to upset people and sort out your social life, you're surrounded with people who use you or ignore you or treat you like shit in other ways. So this resentment just keeps building and keeps building. The sense of unfairness, this victim-like sense, it gets worse every day. Because you don't want to face yourself around this, you blame everyone else. You blame your childhood, you blame your parents, you blame the way the world is. Some of you get really worked up about politics. You're just constantly pointing at everybody else. You caused my pain. You. I'm doing everything right. You're causing my pain. When really, there's only one person causing your pain. The cost socially is enormous. And it's really hard to see because you're getting lots of short-term rewards, or what appear to be rewards, positive reactions, approval, validation. You're not seeing the long-term cost. You might think that you're really fooling everybody because you're fooling yourself. You might think that this is quite genuine the way you're being, that other people feel that way about you. And yet you're also able to recognize when other people are people-pleasing. In fact, it looks obvious as fuck to you, right? When someone's being fake and falsely polite and trying to make everyone like them, it's so obvious to you. And yet you think that you're not obvious like that. You are. Fucking newsflash. Just because people react well to you, just because you get positive reactions, doesn't mean that they're fooled by the act. I mean, we laugh at stand-up comedians too, but we still know they're trying to be funny. We're not like, oh my god, that's spontaneously interesting, right? So people know that you're doing this. They might forgive you. They might enjoy being around you. They might even use you for it. But they do not trust you. They do not respect you. They cannot truly love you. They can become codependent if they're also fucked up. But how could someone love you if they don't know who you really are? And if you're not being truthful, then they don't know who you really are. So whatever love you're receiving is based on your act, not on who you are. They love your performance. It's like someone pretending to be you and getting all the love, right? So they might trust you in terms of they trust the performance. They know that you're always going to be a nice guy or a people pleaser. They might think of you as reliable because you never say no to anything. But that doesn't mean they trust you, all right? And you'll notice this. You'll often be disappointed and insulted by how people won't trust you with certain things and how they'll go to other people for help when they should have come to you. And you'll be like, why? I've been such a solid, player in your life. Why would you go to someone else? I'm insulted. Well, it's because they know that you're not real. You can't be trusted. When they need real shit, they have to go to a real person. All of this erodes your self-respect. There is no people pleaser in the world who has self-respect. Those two things will never meet. Alright? Because deep down, no matter what kind of lies you've told yourself and believed, you know you're not being honest. You know that you're hiding your preferences. You know that you're pretending to agree. You know that you're exaggerating your stories. You know this. Now, in the moment, you kind of reconcile it with yourself, justify it, explain it to yourself, minimize it. But the fact that you have to do all that explaining and justifying, you wouldn't have to do that with the truth. So you know that you're being dishonest. And dishonesty is a form of self-respect in that respect is allowing what is to be. It is what it is. That is what respect is all about. And you're saying, that is not good enough. We're going to have to do something else. So every time you're dishonest, you're basically saying to yourself, I'm not good enough as I am. You say that to yourself dozens of times per day for decades. What kind of impact do you think that's going to have? Imagine if someone else was doing it to you. Every time you went to tell a story, they're like, no, you have to exaggerate it. You're not funny enough. Or you went to share an opinion. It's like, yeah, your opinion sucks. Keep it to yourself. If someone else was doing that all day, every day, you'd call that person abusive. You'd call them a bully. And that's exactly what you're doing to yourself. Your integrity is being eroded. It's probably a long time since you even knew what living with integrity was. You might have known it as a child, but that quickly got punished out of you. So you're just not living by your own principles. You try to justify it to yourself. That's why you call yourself a good person. That's why you think making people happy is a good thing. But deep down, you know that you don't respect your own behavior. You lie awake at night, resenting yourself for the things you've done or haven't done. Often for things you haven't done, the opportunities you missed. I wish I had said something, so on. And I think most heartbreaking of all, loneliness. You cannot actually connect with people when you're a people pleaser. That was the key thing in my life. When I got to about 24, 25 years old, I felt completely alone. I felt like a unit of one. Like nobody knew who I really was. I had a couple of close friends, and maybe I sort of dismissed that. But they were living their own lives. They weren't around that often. Nearly all of my interactions were forced, a bit fake. I was trying to be funny all the time. I wasn't letting my true emotions show. I was trying to look tough and cool. And all that meant is I just didn't feel like I was really with anyone. I knew that they didn't like me for who I was. So it was almost like I was watching them have a relationship with someone else, this guy that I made up, who's getting all the credit and who's better than me. Right? And it was a very isolating feeling, and it just kept getting worse and worse, especially as the few people who knew me well were moving on with their lives and I wasn't seeing them as much. And I started to see that this is going in a trajectory, like this is only going to escalate. Like I'm getting lonelier and lonelier as time passes, and that started to scare the shit out of me. Like I couldn't see this getting any better. I knew that doing the same thing was going to keep you in the same results. So just because people like you doesn't mean it's you that they like. It doesn't mean you have a connection with them. You can have 100 friends and still be all alone. I've been there. Now the funny thing is, it's not funny, it's terrible really. This doesn't even work. I think if people-pleasing at least pleased people, then I'd be out of business. If you at least constantly got rewarding reactions to it over time, then you could probably live with that forever. And there's some people who do. I think of sort of Hollywood actors and stuff, people who've taken performing and pleasing others to the highest possible degree. They've been rewarded so strongly for it that it doesn't occur to them to try something else. Now, they'll still be miserable later, I know this, but they can keep doing it for a long time. Some clients come to me when they're in their 20s and 30s because that's how quickly it stopped working. But there are others who come to me in their 50s and 60s. It's not that I was actually working that well, but they were in denial. But that's the thing, if people-pleasing really did bring in the rewards it's supposed to, I think a lot of people would be okay with being fake. But it doesn't even work for that. People won't even like you that much because, if nothing else, people can feel the incongruence. We are very sensitive to fakeness. That's in our fucking DNA. It's a survival mechanism. The people who were not sensitive to that died out hundreds of years ago. Now, while a lot of people can be manipulated and so on and so forth, they usually know something's off when it's happening. They just don't respect themselves. There's very few people who are manipulated without any sense of a red flag at any point in the process. It's just they override that sense, or they ignore it. So if you think that you really are fooling people, that they go, man, that is a genuinely good dude, even if they say that, watch them carefully, how they respond to you, how well they trust you, kind of where they prioritize you in their life. And you'll notice that not that many people are buying it. And that there are some people out there, some people who you've missed such an opportunity with, who hate you because you're a people pleaser. And if you'd been real with them from the beginning, they might be your closest friend, because they're absolutely disgusted by fakeness. And in my experience, in my professional opinion, the more confident a person is, the more disgusted they are by inauthenticity. So in my experience, the more confident a person is, the more disgusted they are by fakeness. So if you're being inauthentic, you're actually pushing away the best possible people. So that's not exactly a win. If there are people out there who really love your people pleasing, and they seem genuinely rewarded by it, and they love it that you make them happy, those people are fucked up. And you already know this. I don't need to convince you of this. You've had those friends and partners who become codependent on you, who fall apart. You're their therapist, you're their comedian and entertainer, you're their fucking handyman that fixes everything. You know they're messed up. If anybody falls apart because you go away for a while, that person is messed up. So the best case scenario for a long-term people pleaser is the only people who can stay in their life are even more fucked up than they are. Because people can feel when niceness isn't honest. They might say you're a nice person, they might say that you're lovely, but they notice that you have a very shallow emotional range. They notice that you don't seem to react the way a healthy person would react. You don't seem to be upset enough. You don't seem to care about things enough, perhaps. Now, there are some exceptions. There's some people pleasers who have wild mood swings. But generally the sense is this person is like robotic. This person is like someone put AI into a human body and it's trying to pretend to be a person. They get that sense from you, the flat affect sense. And because they can feel that slight manipulation, especially when you try to convince them and you try to help them without their, permission, and you're forcing yourself on them, they can feel that manipulation and makes them defensive, makes them feel unsafe. One of my big breakthroughs in understanding why I was struggling so much with women is because while I could make them laugh and solve all their problems and I was really easy to be around, there was something unsafe about me, something untrustworthy. I don't think they could have even articulated it. They didn't even know what it was. They just had this little inner warning system that said to them, don't let this guy get too close. So over time you start sorting people. All the confident ones are pushed away, all the healthy people leave you, and you're left with the ones who want you to disappear. They want you to not be yourself. They benefit from you being this way. They're codependent. If you're lucky, and some of my clients say you might be with a partner who's also working on themselves, and you can do this work at the same time and you can both grow together. You don't have to start healthy, you just both have to be moving in the same direction. But for a lot of you, you'll be surrounded by enablers. You maybe have parents that want you to be this way, friends, co-workers, and you now feel trapped by that. You're surrounded by unhealthy people who want you to remain unhealthy. So even if people can't explain exactly why, they don't trust people pleasers. They don't really want them in deep. And that's why you always feel like you're on the outside of the group trying to cling on and occasionally getting begrudgingly accepted for short periods of time. But ultimately, they know something's off with you, and that's why you're not in the inner circle and never will be, if you keep behaving this way. So that thing that you're doing to avoid them rejecting you and avoid being ostracized and try to make them like you, the opposite is what ends up happening. You end up all alone. So avoiding all that rejection just led to a total rejection. A rejection of yourself by yourself, and a complete lack of trust and acceptance from others. So the strategy doesn't work. So I want to open up to the idea. I want you to open up to the idea that you can be honest and caring. That being kind to people doesn't mean making them experience the emotion of happiness all the time. That sometimes the kindest, most caring thing you can do for someone is something that they will be upset by in the short term. And that various emotions that we call being upset, like being disappointed or frustrated or guilty or sad, these are things that they need to feel to help process the truth of life. And that you making them happy prevents them from processing these things. That you're not really helping them, you're holding them back so that you feel more comfortable. Being honest and caring, it allows disappointment. It allows people to go through the processing of difficult emotions. It respects other people's autonomy. It lets them decide for themselves what the right thing to do is. It lets them make their own mistakes. And it accepts the consequences. You know, it used to be, I would do anything to prevent someone disliking me. Right? I don't care if it ruined their life as long as they ended up liking me. I've done horrible things. I've talked people out of getting into relationships because I thought I might lose them as a friend. All sorts of selfish, horrible things that I justified. Nowadays, I would let someone hate me forever for all the wrong reasons, so long as that's what was best for them and their quality of life. I no longer am attached to them liking me. I'm more attached to people doing what's best for them. And quite often that involves them being upset somewhere along the way. People-pleasing avoids these kind of reactions. It's always seeking approval and validation. It's willing to sacrifice other people so that you can have another happy moment. How can you call yourself a good person with that motive? Let's check in here. I'm not going to tell you to stop people-pleasing out of nowhere, because that's not going to happen. You've got a lifetime to overcome here. What I want you to do instead is something much smaller. I want you to just notice the next time you get that urge to make someone else happy. Maybe it's an anticipatory urge, like you start making them happy before you even see any other kind of emotion come up for them, like you're just automatically funny, that person you see. You're automatically adjusting your opinions before the conversation even starts. Or maybe it's reactive. You notice someone starts to get upset, you notice the little frown lines on their face, or you notice there's a bit of conflict building between two people, and that urge you have to mediate it, to correct it, to change it. Notice what that urge is telling you to do. Maybe it's telling you to be funny, telling you to be interesting, telling you to agree when you actually don't, telling you to change the subject. What is it doing to try and divert people back to happiness? I want you to just have awareness of it. Just notice it instead of it happening in this kind of blind, automatic, subconscious way. And once you've noticed it, just ask yourself a question. What am I afraid is going to happen if I was honest instead? So people-pleasing and honesty are not the same thing. You might be truthful when you're people-pleasing, but it's a carefully selected truth. It's not the real one that's going to upset people. So when you notice that you get that urge, oh, I'm going to try and be funny, or try to be cool, or calm them down, go, what do I actually wish I had the balls to say? What's the truth going on inside me that I'm not allowed to say right now? And just notice it. You don't have to act on it. This isn't a competition or a challenge. Just If nothing else, you're just going to be honest with yourself about it, so that you can see that this is not about the other person and their well-being, that this is about you managing your fear, that you're not trying to make them happy, you're trying to stop something bad happening to you. If you can start seeing that and being truthful with yourself about that, you're already ahead of 90% of people pleasers who are trying to work on this stuff. That's most of the work, is just being honest with yourself about it. If this pattern is something that's ruining your life and you're sick of it, you're ready to do something about it, you can get in touch with me, dan@brojo.org, and we'll start moving this thing along. But only when you're ready. So, let's reflect on what we've talked about. Let's forgive your childhood self for coming up with this strategy. He or she was trying to keep you safe. It was something that was the most effective thing that an immature mind could think of at the time. And it must have worked. To some extent, it must have increased your quality of life, because otherwise you wouldn't have kept doing it. So because it was so effective at some time, it's very hard to drop it. It's like sunk cost fallacy. You've invested so much into being a people pleaser for so long. It feels like something you've got to maintain, something you just got to tweak it a little bit, keep most of it, maybe change a little bit, but you don't want to throw away decades of hard work. But before you can do anything about this, you must increase your awareness. You have to notice yourself doing this and be honest with yourself about what's happening and why it's happening. You've got to let go of the idea that you're this good person. It's not a helpful identity being a good person. In fact, you're more likely to be good if you can get to a more honest position anyway. So if you really do want to be a good person, then stop lying to yourself. Start admitting to yourself what you're doing and why you're doing it. You might feel like it's overwhelming to make this change, but it's not. Honesty is a spectrum. It's a skill set. It's not some personality trait that you either have or don't have. At any given time, the thing that comes out of your mouth or is expressed by your body could be a little bit more honest than usual. And you can just keep doing that for the rest of your life. There's no end to this. I'm still working on being more honest. I still slip every now and then. But honesty is the path out of this. If you do want to exchange people-pleasing for confidence, controlling people for actually caring for them, then honesty is the deal breaker for people-pleasing. You can't be a people-pleaser and be completely honest at the same time. The two don't go together. So if you can ask yourself, what's a little bit more honesty look like? Then you can see the path out of this thing. But there will be consequences. There will be short-term upset, discomfort type consequences. There's no way around that. Honesty feels dangerous even when it's the right thing to do. Those fears you have that people are not going to accept your honesty, yeah, some of them are not. Maybe many of them. You might be surrounded by people who need to live in a lie, and they're going to react very badly to someone opening things up to what's real. There are people out there who are going to react well to you being honest, though. Maybe you haven't met them yet. Maybe you've spent your whole life repelling them. You might need to weed the garden before you can plant something new. But this isn't about other people. It's about you and your fear. It's about you deciding, am I going to be ruled by these childhood insecurities that no longer function and are causing my life to be miserable? Or am I going to take a risk with another way of doing it that I've been convinced my whole life is risky? I'm convinced my whole life that it's going to cause more harm than good. Let's just see if that's actually true, because we know people-pleasing is hurting you. We don't know for sure that honesty would. I spent most of my life living this way simply because I didn't know there was another option available. Once I started being honest, I realized I'd been missing out my whole life, that I'd been living a lie, and that being truthful was the only way to create a life that I wouldn't regret in the long run.